We are now ready for Word Lesson 5. In Lesson 5, we're looking at how your text flows on your pages, how we can use columns or hyphen information, how do you use the margin, that type of information. If you look at the text here in Chapter 5, you're going to be seeing that we're going to be looking at page layouts and working with breaks, that type of thing. If you look down here on the key terms, if you're familiar with all of these, then you might be ready to go ahead and go right to the assessment. If not, please make sure you take a minute to read through it. Some of the things that they're talking about here have to do with the page layout tab. So if I open up Word and just bring up a blank document here, you can see on the page layout tab here are all the things that we'd be doing in Word. Now this paragraph section right here is the same as the same thing you would do on the Home tab with the paragraphs. But here are the page setup. We've got our margins where we can set the white space at the edge of our paper. Orientation, do you want it landscape or do you want it to be portrait? You've got your size, columns, breaks. Now the breaks is an interesting thing. If I select here the page break, you can also find under the Insert tab, but there's other types of breaks. Column break, maybe you have two columns and you want a particular section to start at the top of the next column. You would use this column break. Text wrapping, the next page, all these different breaks that we're going to be able to use, you want to locate under the page layout tab. Line numbers, if you want to line your numbers, so if you want to know what page, what line of text that you're on. It's especially helpful if you have a large document and you have a large group of people. You can say, let's go to line 32 instead of saying in paragraph 6 on page 2. You can just tell them what line number to go to. And hyphenation is just that. When your sentence goes to the end, do you want the word to automatically, do you want all of it to go down to the next line, or do you want to hyphenate it? So you can tell it when and how you want it to do that. So that in a nutshell is the page setup, and you'll notice also you've got this little box here which is your dialog box launcher, and there are more options you can choose from. Some of them the same or is what you would have up here as well, like the margin area, but you can be a little more specific here. The gutter position, that has to do with the space between your columns. That's called a gutter. Here's your paper, what size do you want it, and your layout, which we looked at in the Circling Back project, the vertical alignment, we changed that to center. So here is where that information is all at. So let's close this and let's look at the Lesson 5 competency. We're going to format a YMCA newsletter. So we need to go to page 163 in our textbook. So let me see if I go to 200, where is that going to put me? 66. Right here. Formatting our YMCA newsletter. So the first thing we need to do is come up here and download the Y News document from Blackboard, and then you're going to save that as the 5A YMCA newsletter. So I've got it open up in the protected view, so I need to enable my editing and then save. And so this is 5-1 YMCA newsletter. First thing that we want to do is we want to find out where all of our breaks and our enter keys, our paragraphs and everything is. So we're going to click on the Show Hide button. That way we can know specifically where we're at in our page. So you can see right now we have a 2-page document, and we want to make this look a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to read, and we want it to be on one page. So that is our goal for this assignment. We're going to position our insertion point before the M in the heading, Mother's Day Out. So here's the title, Preston Creek Family. Here's Mother's Day Out. I'm going to put my insertion point right there. And this is where I want to start my columns at. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to the Page Layout tab. And right here in the Page Setup group, I'm going to come up here to the Breaks button, and I'm going to come down here to a Continuous. This is going to put in a section break. Now, where a section break really comes in handy is when you start dealing with more reports and things like that. But we're going to put this right here. We're just going to put a new section in. It's going to start right on the same page. Now you notice you don't really see anything in here, but right up here next to the YMCA, this little item right here, that lets you know that you've inserted your section break. So now we're going to come up here to our columns, and we're going to tell it we want it to be 2 columns. Okay, so now everything under that section break, which we had right here, is now in 2 columns. So you can see now we've already gone from 2 pages to 1 page. We have our 2 columns set in here in our document. Now, if we come down here, you can see this fall soccer registration. Most of that information is in the other column, so we want this information to appear in the column next to it. So to do that, we need to put in a break with our column. So we're going to move our insertion point right here in front of the F in the fall soccer, and we're going to come back up here to the breaks area. This time we're going to come down here under section break, and we're going to come up here, actually it's under page break, sorry, and we're going to go to column, and this is going to indicate that the text following is going to begin in the next column. So if I select this, that fall soccer registration is now up here in the second column. So if I come up here to the columns button, and you can see you have your choice of different columns, how many. If we come down here to more columns, this is going to give us even more information. How many columns do we want? What do we want our column width and the spacing to be? Do we want it to be equal column width, or do we want it to be one side to be 2 inches and the other side to be 4 inches? That's where all this is going to be coming in at. And we want to change the width of our column to 2.8. So I'm going to just increase this to 2.8. And you notice our spacing is now adjusting to 0.9. The spacing indicates how much space is in between the columns here. We want to put a line between our columns, so we just need to tell it that way by selecting that box. You see our preview shows there's a line there, and we can say OK. And now here is our line in our column. We want to now place our insertion point in the second paragraph mark under the box at the end of the document. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to put it right here under the box at the end, and we're going to type the Get Moving Challenge. You're probably going to get a red line under here because it thinks it should say moving, and we don't want it to that. We want to say moving. So we've got this text here. We're going to highlight it and select it. And we're going to come up here to the columns, and we actually want this to just be 1 column. So we're going to select 1 column, and it's going to move it down to the bottom of the page underneath it and put it in 1 column. We want to center this text, so we need to go to the Home tab, and we're going to center it, and then we're going to bold it, and it should be at the bottom of your first page. We want to increase the font size to 20, and we want to change the color of our text here to dark red. So it's right here under the colors. Now if we click our Show Hide button off, if I go to my View tab and just go to 1 page, you can see we now have a nice one-page newsletter with a title, and then we've got some information at the bottom, and it looks a lot nicer than what we started out with. So that is how you can do some quick column formatting of text. You can also create your columns and then just enter your text. Sometimes it's easier though just to kind of put all of your text in, then go back and modify. But you're now ready to submit this for your grade in Blackboard.